I'm told we're live, so we'll start the committee meeting. Welcome everybody to the Charities and Trusts Committee of Staffordshire County Council. Before I start, there's going to be a slight amendment to the agenda. We're going to take, in this order, item 4 will be the first working item, then item 7, and then we'll go back with 5, 6. There are members of staff from both schools, so it's to assist you to be here today than to go back and do your schoolwork. Okay. Item 1, apologies.
Good morning, Chairman. We've received apologies from Councillor J.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Thank you. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Seconder. Thank you. All those in agreement then? Thank you. Okay, item 4 then please. Stafford 14 to 19 Partnership, updated business plan 2019-2024.
I'll introduce it if that's okay, Chair. Hopefully new members of the committee will have had a chance to look at the background within the paper. Or was it not close enough? Sorry. In summary, Stafford 14 to 19 Partnership, which is a collaboration of 5 Stafford secondary schools, have benefited from financial support from the Stafford Education Centre charity over a number of years. Their most recent business plan covers the period 2019 to 24, and the partnership provide the committee with an annual report on their progress against the plan and share the operational plan for the following academic year, along with setting out their updated business plan, their funding request for the following 2 academic years. The chair of the partnership executive group for the partnership, Leslie Beck, and the partnership manager, Maggie Smart, are in attendance today to talk you through their update report and respond to any questions you might have. And they're also accompanied by Anne Kingman, who will take up the role of the chair of the executive group in the next academic year. As an officer of the County Council, I work with the partnership to promote good financial management and delivery of the business plan. My report makes the following recommendations: that the trustees of the committee review and approve the updated business plan and partnership report, that they consider for approval the funding request to the Stafford Education Centre charity of £169,029 for the 21-22 academic year, which is a reduction of £22,265 on the amount that was approved in principle at the 9th of September meeting. In principle, and also in principle, the estimated sum of £176,319 for the 22-20, getting my years muddled up now, 22-23 academic year. The reduction for the 21-22 academic year from what was requested in September is due to a reduced level of support being required for the shortfall in teaching costs, and the financial year end of 2021 having a surplus due to activities that were unable to take place during the year due to the COVID-19 restrictions, and some additional income that had been received and savings that had been made on usual activity. These requests continue to enable both the delivery of the wider post-16 curriculum across the 5 schools, but also support activity to challenge gifted and talented students and engage those that are at risk of becoming NEET or from exclusion. We also request that the committee approve for the County Council's Assistant Director for Skills and Employability to continue to be authorised to approve the release of the funds agreed and subject to successful delivery of the business plan. With your approval, Chair, shall I hand over to Leslie, who will talk you through the partnership report?
Yes, please.
Leslie, over to you.
okay? Can you now hear me? Okay. Thank you. So I'll say that again. I'm Leslie Beck, head teacher of Sir Graham Balfour School in Stafford, and chair of the Stafford Sixth Form 14th 19 partnership. This will be my last meeting, and Kingman, who's just behind me, will be taking over from September. She'll be taking the chair then. So we have prepared, and I think you are in receipt of a report that between us, the partnership manager Maggie and myself have prepared. I don't intend to read through that, but I do happily take any questions that may come from that, Chair.
Do any members have any questions?
Good morning, everyone. This is my first time on this committee, so apologies if you bear with me for being perhaps a little bit slow on one or two items. The business case that we've put in front of us, and I've perhaps possibly got the wrong minutes in front of me. It does mention the 100 and I can't find it now, 100 and some odd £1,000, £169,000 figure, but it doesn't actually say what that 169,000 does. Could someone sort of enlighten me as to which page I should be on?
The breakdown of the funding requests on page 24 and 25 of the business plan.
Right. I've obviously got a different one then. So rather than me pretend to be going through them quickly, could someone just sort of give me a brief précis of what it is? Just to give you a sort of a bit of insight to me. I actually went to the grammar school when it was a grammar school. So I've got quite an interest in Stafford. My children have all been educated in Stafford. And the collegiate, I'd like to know, in a way, how you're going to use, what benefit it will be to the kids. And it's obviously in the business plan, so apologies there. But if you could just tell me, that'd be appreciated.
The partnership as a whole, or what the £169,000 is being requested for? Okay, so if I can refer you to page 24, because that kind of gives you the headlines, and then I'll talk around that if you think that would help. So the 5 schools taken together, we receive funding to the tune of, if you have a look in that top box, of £1,271,058. That's the money that we get per capita added up for the post-16 students across our schools. Okay, and you can see the sum that brings us up to. If we then take into consideration central courses, that's courses that are taught not by staff employed directly by the 5 centres, but 3 teaching staff who are employed by the central partnership to deliver courses such as health and social care, law, criminology. That's the first line that you can see there under teaching. We then have, if you look at the first star, the shortfall on teaching costs amounts to £35,000. This is because currently those courses, the staff salaries, is not commensurate with the number of students who are opting for those courses, and that has been part of our plan to increase the number of students coming on to those courses, not aided of course last year by the fact that our open evening events were curtailed because of COVID. The second one is partnership overheads, the 2 stars, and this is to pay for the 3 members of staff, one of whom is Maggie. We also have a business manager who oversees the spend of monies and reports back to our collegiate governance forum, and also to a part-time administrator. And we then have a sum of money that, as of late, over the past couple of years, we've been able to draw on to work with students in the 14 to 16 bracket who are at risk of not being in education or for students at the gifted and talented range, to make sure that they're getting the opportunities to see outside of Stafford, to visit universities, to take up other experiences that hopefully then will encourage them to go on to further and higher education, to bring those kinds of skills back into Stafford for the immediate future. So that's where that £169,000 comes from. It's the difference between the monies that the schools receive for post-16 students and the amount of costs that we have to provide to maintain the partnership.
Okay, apologies that I did, it was page 24 was it the budget was on? Yeah. Yeah, because and apologies for asking the question, but it doesn't actually show what's, it just says teaching 856,000 and then it comes up with the deficit at the end. So it doesn't break down where it's coming from. So as I say, apologies for being a bit slow on that one. I think as one of the members of the board, it would be quite nice as you go forwards to give us a break, to sort of keep us informed as to where this money's going, because the idea of taking youngsters out to colleges and such like is very good. It'd be good to see them going out to visit businesses as well, actually, and finding out what the real world's about. But we don't know. We just say, you've just asked us for a figure of 169,000, and it's not really broken down apart from a bit towards teaching and a bit towards something else. So it's perhaps me being a bit picky, but it would have been nice to see where that was going precisely, rather than a nice wish list.
Well, it's not a wish list, Chair. Those figures are available to the Governance Forum, members of this group who are invited and who do attend that. So they're seen on a half-termly basis, once-a-term basis, yeah. But they are available. They are part of the public record and do go through the trustees of that particular forum. They are accessible for you if you'd like to see them.
Thank you, that would be good.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, we have a recommendation from officers. That we accept recommendations 1, 2 and 3, which have been outlined. Do I have David Smith propose, Councillor Ian Lawton to a second? All in agreement? Aye. Okay, thank you. We accept the proposals.
Thank you very much.
Recommendations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Okay, item number 7, which is Rugeley Education Endowments. It's page 105, 138 on the agenda.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm Andrew Marsden. I'm the Head of Access to Learning, which encompasses responsibilities including school admissions, school transport and the planning of school places. I'm accompanied this morning by colleagues from the school and from the trust that runs a school. If I could ask my colleagues just to introduce themselves, starting with Andy.
Yes, good morning. My name's Andrew Drake. I'm Chairman of the Managing Trustees of the Endowment Fund, if you like, the Dispersal Committee. And I'm also Vice Chair of the Academy Council for the Hart School.
Okay, good morning everyone. My name's Andrea Felton and I'm the Head of Finance at the Hart School.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. My name is Rachel Sanderman. I am the principal at the Hart School.
Thank you. So, if you don't mind, if I could just take you back a little bit in terms of secondary school provision in the town of Rugeley. I'll move to the current position and looking forwards and then draw it back to the paper. So back in 2010, there was uproar when the new coalition government axed the Building Schools for Future programme, which was the previous government's plans to modernise every secondary school, starting with those schools in the worst condition where educational standards needed transformation. And in Staffordshire, out of the 56 schools, we identified the schools in Rugeley as most in need, and we'd issued plans and consulted on proposals to demolish both buildings and to build a single new school which was fit for purpose. Now, in the 10 years or 11 years since that decision, the Hart became an academy. It's joined with other academies in the Creative Education Trust, and provision for students was eventually consolidated a few years ago onto a single site, which was the former Fair Oak School. So, coming to the present, in terms of educational standards, the staff of the governors and the trust have worked hard to make significant improvements there. The school is now considered as a good school by Ofsted. In terms of buildings, the trust has invested millions to maintain, improve, refurbish and extend facilities, which at times has necessitated the transfer of funds from earmarked from other schools in the trust to the Hart. The Hart School then is a much improved state, but there simply aren't the resources within the trust to make the sort of step change in facilities to improve the educational experience of the students, which is why we're here today. As a result of those improvements in terms of educational standards and, to a degree in buildings, the school's popular, it's oversubscribed, it's got more youngsters than the capacity of the school. In fact, this year we've been working very closely with the school on proposals to admit a further 60 youngsters who would otherwise have not been able to attend school in town, would have had to travel to schools in Stafford, Lichfield, or Cannock. So in support of this proposal for the school to take 60 extra youngsters, we entered into heads of terms that were agreed by the leader of the council, Councillor White, and the trust, for the county council to provide a couple of extra classrooms and also to present proposals to this committee today on the opportunity to work with committee to make significant investments in the facilities at the school. In respect of the request, we see that this level of investment would be sort of the biggest single package of investment in the school for quite a while. It will provide immediate benefits for over 1,200 students. And every year, there's 220 students join the school. So for the next decade and the decade after that, there's another 2,200 youngsters, another 2,200 youngsters who fed through the primary system and arrived at the secondary school. Also touched on in the paper is the future. The town of Rugeley is growing. There have been hundreds of new houses built in recent years, and there are plans for almost 2,500 new homes at the former power station site. So as well as working very closely with the trust and the academy, the county council's worked with the Department for Education and the site owners Engie, on plans for a £40 million new academy on the site to be run by John Taylor Matt. What that means is then, in terms of the offer for local parents, in a couple of years' time, we'll have amazing facilities at a brand new free school. And what we'd hope is, by working with the committee, to have excellent, good, strong facilities that support all the work that has taken place over the last few years at the Hart. So there's a real good quality offer for those students who 11 years ago were denied the chance for a brand new school to meet their needs. So that's the bit of the background, where we are and where we're going in the future in terms of the town. So if I turn to the paper, effectively what we're asking committee to consider are a number of options which are set out in paragraph, where am I now? Sorry, I've lost my thread. Paragraph 4. The proposals in paragraph 4 for 3 significant projects. Colleagues, sorry about that. So, colleagues, turning to the options then on paragraph 33 on page 5. So, we presented a number of options, of which option 3 is the preferred option, in that it can make the most immediate benefits for the greatest number of youngsters in the shortest space of in time. So I'll not rehearse those. It is worth mentioning, obviously, that for decades, the trust and the income from the trust has been used to support the students at the secondary schools in the town. The report does refer to a change in the terms of the trust, which extended the benefit or potential benefit to all the schools in the town, which included the primary schools. I have to say, Chair, I don't think that was the original intent of the committee when it applied to make those changes about 3 years ago. I think what's happened is that in broadening the description of the type of secondary school that can serve the youngsters, it's been broadened a little too widely, and now we encompass primary schools. So at this moment in time, like I say, the scope is wider, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the committee should change the way in which they benefit the school's pupils. Indeed, since the change in 2018, the funding has continued to be allocated through the Heart School, as Andrew is responsible for the distribution. So I don't know if you'd like the school to speak a little bit more about their particular circumstances, Chair. I think they can bring to life what I've tried to explain.
Yes, please. It'd be nice to hear it.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I do realise some of the points that I'm about to share, no doubt, will be echoing what Andrew has just shared with us. But if I could just start a little bit with some context in the background. I am a long-serving member of staff. I've worked in Rugeley for over 17 years. I started my career at Fair Oak Academy, and I am very passionate about education and making a real difference to the children that we serve. I am newly appointed as the principal since September, so this is a new role for me, but certainly established with the students and with the community, and indeed with the parents. So Hagley Park and Fair Oak Academy both joined the Creative Education Trust in September 2011. And as Andrew has just said, about 11 years ago, we were hoping that we would have had significant investment under the Building Schools for the Future scheme. And I remember it very well. I was a part of building the plan for that. And at that time, we were devastated that didn't happen. And mainly because of the poor state that the buildings were both sitting in. The Heart School Secondary Education Academy in Rugeley, and it was formed in 2016, so the two schools, once they merged, the new title, new name of the school was 2016. And at that time, we were operating across 2 sites. So we had a lower Key Stage 3 site, which was on the Fair Oak, and we had an upper Key Stage, which was Key Stage 4 and 5, which was located on the Hagley Park. At that time, there was 1,135 students on roll. In 2018, the two schools, the 2 sites became one, and that was for economic factors, in all honesty. And it's important to note, and I know this is outlined in the plan, that Fair Oak site, initially when that was designed and built, it was designed and built for 950 students. Since the academisation in 2011, both the schools have received significant capital investment from the Trust, and we are very grateful. And actually, recently we have been working extremely closely with Staffordshire County Council, building relationships, and that's absolutely key, having those positive relationships, something I firmly believe in as a principal as we move forward. And the main reason for that is so that we are able to continue to offer a broad, wide varied curriculum for our students, but a curriculum that goes beyond the classroom. From September 2018, we were delighted to welcome Ofsted into the school. A lot of work has taken place over those years, and I've seen the developments of those two schools grow from strength to strength, and we were awarded a good judgment by Ofsted. So the current position, as I've said, new principal from September, but the PAN from September will be 220. We are absolutely delighted that more and more families of Rugeley are choosing the Heart School as their number one choice. And we do have official numbers. We were actually sitting at 251 the other day, following appeals. And 218 of those applications made this year were first choice preferences by the families. And that's evidence that families within our local community catchment area and actually beyond the catchment area are choosing the Heart School as number one choice. From September 21, at the Heart School, we have worked very closely with Staffordshire County Council so that we can provide additional spaces for 30 more students above PAN for September, but also for September 22-23. And that's really important, actually. It's important to myself, but it's important that we are able to provide an education for children that are local without them having to travel out of their catchment area and out of town. In October 2022, we have projected numbers that the school will be at 1,300. And students then, that will be incredibly tight. It's already incredibly tight, the site is now, and I would absolutely welcome any members of the committee if you would wish to visit the school. And 1,300 is on a site of 950. This actually makes us one of the biggest secondary schools within Staffordshire. If I may, Chair, I'd like to pass on to my colleague Andrea Felton, who's our Head of Finance, working for the school.
You know you don't get your extra money for 12 months, though, with increasing your PAN.
I will always try.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to build on what's already been mentioned by both Rachel and by Andrew, and what is in fact included within Appendix D of the report. Just really want to take the opportunity to stress the financial commitment of the Trust and everything that the Trust has done since taking over the schools in 2011. So they've funded losses of 3.4 million over the last 5 years, mainly because we did have the two sites, and that was the main decision to move to one site in 2016. Because in 2017-18, we reached a peak. We had a deficit budget of over £1 million, which was not sustainable. Which was why we mothballed the Hagley Park site. That then meant that we could reduce our deficit significantly, despite funding the maintenance of the Hagley Park site. So that costs us currently £140,000 per year because we are maintaining it, making sure it's secure and well looked after. The Hagley Park site, we will be handing that back to Staffordshire County Council on the 2nd of August. So that will allow us to be at an almost break-even position, which is really, really good news. Despite this, the Trust Board have said, and they've agreed within the 3-year plan, that if we are successful with this capital, then they will increase the annual budget by the £85,000 that we will be losing by not having that interest to bid for. So they have made that commitment. They don't want the pupils to lose out on those enrichment opportunities that the interest currently funds. So, for example, that interest we funded all year 7s to go to Harry Potter studios. We funded dance groups to go to Disneyland Paris to perform. So these are really good enrichment opportunities that the pupils would otherwise not have. And the Trust are committed to make sure that that continues. Capital-wise, the Trust have invested 2.4 million since 2011 on the Penkridge Bank Road site. You might have heard of some of the things that we've done recently. We were the first school to have a dome, a sports dome, like they use in leisure clubs. That's been a huge success. It's a double-sized PVC dome that allows us to be able to provide sports all year round, and we're hoping to offer that up to the community once restrictions are lifted. We've got catering pods, outdoor canopies for dining outside so that the children have lots of fresh air over lunchtime. We've got a classroom refurbishment programme that we've been rolling out. We've got brand new fencing, electric gate system, CCTV all over site, you know, just to make sure that we're secure and that the pupils are safe. So we have invested heavily in that. We've upgraded the ICT system so that we've got really fast broadband to allow all of our pupils to be able to use Chromebooks. And we also ensuring that we have upgraded conditions. So we've been upgrading the fire doors, upgrading all the boilers. So the Trust have invested heavily in the site. And that will continue. So even if we are successful with this 2.5 million, this is in addition to, not instead of. So during the summer, for example, we're going to have a full refurbishment of the main hall. That includes bleacher seating. So this is seating that folds back to allow for increased performances, to let the community come and use our hall to provide performance and dance space. We're refurbishing 4 science labs over the summer just to make sure that they're, state of the art and as good as they can be. We're continuing through our classroom refurbishment programme as well. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Marsden? Okay, so.
Apologies, Chair. So if I may continue, and I do have some documentation that I can leave behind if you wish, which is covering everything that I'm talking about today. I would just like to talk a little bit about the net capacity assessment that has been provided by Staffordshire County Council for this year, and that's mainly because we are an oversubscribed school from September, and we have had some students and families as part of our appeals process. So and that's where that comes from. The latest report states the following. Our agreed net capacity for 2021 is 1,238 as part of our funding agreement. Our indicated admission number per year group is 177. And that is including the 2 new classrooms that Staffordshire County Council very kindly donated to the school to support us. So even with the 2 additional classrooms, the indicated admission number is 177. With a growing sixth form of 138 flowing through, that gives us a total of 1,126. So a difference of 212 students. And the following year with the additional board year group, that would take us to 279 additional, well, not additional students, but more students than the capacity of the school. The current need for us is due to the continued, and which we're delighted, but the continued increased number of students. There is insufficient capacity for specialist areas for our students. And if we are to provide an outstanding education for all of our students and the students of Rugeley, the children absolutely do deserve the very best. And that's very difficult for us to do that, to provide that level of education without adequate facilities. And we want them to thrive academically and socially, and so that they do become independent learners and critical in their thinking, and informed in their choices and confident in the ability so that they can succeed in the modern world that we live in. I've talked about the classrooms. There is, if I say one thing today, and this is one thing for me, is from the heart, and excuse the pun, But irrespective of whichever school that the children choose in Rugeley, whether that's the Hart School or the John Taylor Free School, irrespective, they absolutely do deserve to have the best possible education that we can provide, and that's with resources and with facilities. And that they should not be disadvantaged by their postcode that they live in. Our request today is very much child-focused, and as a principal, every decision that I make in that school will be child-focused. And this significantly will impact on thousands of children who pass through the school and our wider community. And this school is seeing increased levels of deprivation in our local community. And we are actually, for free school meals, slightly above national. We have a duty of care to ensure that our students make the best progress that they possibly can, irrespective of their background, their starting points, their academic ability, and their social background. If I may, I'm not sure if you have the documentation in front of you, but if I may just point out a couple of references, please. So, Annex A, additional classroom space. And I think it's important that for me to share why this would make such a difference in our school. To support the increase of pupil numbers and growing sixth form, I currently have children being taught in half of, of our social space. And that's not good enough. I need to make sure that I can provide that space to create additional capacity within the school and specialist provision that would support us. Exposure to a wider curriculum for students, for thousands of students over a period of time, and for wider opportunities for our community to come into the school and to continue to engage with the school. In reference to Annex B, the social space, and I will leave this with you, I've highlighted an area which is, it doesn't really show you the grassed area, which is actually a bank. It looks pretty flat, Chair, on the plan. And that area for us as a school is pretty unused, in all honesty, and it is very much limited due to weather. And we do have a proposal of creating additional social space, and that would create an additional 2,200 square feet, which would be significant for us as a school. And on the back, really is the only areas of social space plus 2 tennis courts. The plan will show 3 tennis courts. One of those has been converted, which is the dome that Andrea was referring to, which is a teaching space now. So that space, unfortunately, is not social space for the students. So we have 2 tennis courts, and we have an area which is a backyard that leads on to the field. And finally is the old swimming pool, which I do remember was in use when I started, but unfortunately is very much derelict now. And we have proposals of either creating additional dining space, facilities for our students, or specialist drama, dance studios that many children, thousands of children, would actually benefit from that. And my final point is around impact. And in order to deliver a first-class education and curriculum that doesn't hinder the progress of the children, I would urge councillors to recommend the free of the restrictions with respect to the expenditure of capital of the Rugeley Educational Endowment. Thousands of present and future students and wider community will benefit of better facilities and enhance their learning and education journey. And that actually will include all of our primary feeders. And finally, if we are truly going to level up this, then the investment will certainly help us to do that. Many, many thanks, everybody.
So, very briefly, the report sets out, obviously, the legal implications for trustees. So if we just turn to a few of those paragraphs. So paragraph 36, and I will read it out. Charity trustees have a duty to ensure that the charity's assets are applied in advancement of the charitable purposes for the public benefit. If you turn to Appendix E, which is the charity scheme, paragraph 14. My consideration, you obviously need to make your own decision, is that this proposal is in keeping with the statement which effectively talks about furthering the education of the students from an academic, artistic, moral or physical standpoint. So we think it would advance the purposes of the trust. Paragraph 40 does talk about the Charities Act, which provided additional flexibilities for trusts in how they use their assets, and we would not be alone in changing the way that the trust and the funding works to provide for capital investment. The legal people that we've been working with have done this in very many times, so we're not setting any, we're not blazing a trail, although it is the first decision of its kind for this trust. Okay. Paragraph 41 talks about obviously the decision making in terms of 2/3. Ultimately, however, the final decision, if an application is made to the Charities Commission, it rests with the Charities Commission, as you know. And then finally, in paragraph 44, it's just really a repetition that in respect of flexibility for the committee and for the school and trust, is that our preference, my preference would be for option 3 of the options, as I've mentioned earlier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marsden. Councillors? Any questions or any views, please? Councillor Whitty.
I don't want to be first or the only one to speak, but I've got one or two questions, please. I'll just go through the order. I've got them in my notes. It's really a question on the finance and what's happened in the past in terms of mothballing the site. Am I right in assuming that, or taking the information that there's a second site which is mothballed, which Stafford County Council is going to sell?
It is going to be handed back to Stafford County Council. I'm not aware of what is going to happen to the building or the site after that time.
Okay. It just seems interesting to me that there's a capital item there, and it's really what's just perhaps one for Ian. Is any of that money going to come back to the main school, or is that money going to be going to the central property pot? That's one question in a minute. And the second one, really around that second site, you're talking about the demographics of youngsters increasing. That's one really for Andrew. Are we going to see an increase of that's even though work's being done on this school, is there going to be capacity in the future in terms of the demographics? That's a question for Andrew, really. You mentioned £85,000. Where was that? Sorry, I missed it. Where was that coming from?
It's just coming from, it's going to be added into the school budget, which is going to push us into a higher deficit, but that will be funded by the Trust's other schools that are actually in surplus. Right, so that's going to be funded within your own... Yeah, it is. So the reason why I said 85,000, so that's the amount of interest that is currently generated by the fund itself, which is what we normally bid for. And that's... Well, definitely. How certain is it that £85,000 is going to be? It's absolutely definite. It was heard by the Trust Board last week and it was approved. So I added it into my 3-year plan for the Hart School. So that's ring-fenced? Yes, it is. Yeah, good. And then the final one, and it's perhaps I've not read the papers that clearly. The £2.5 million that you're asking for is for projects which haven't actually been costed out. That's right. We haven't done a feasibility study on any of these projects yet. This This is an estimated cost based on initial discussions with the providers.
So my question is, what happens if you go over budget by 100%?
I think that is unlikely because they have been costed out by our head of estates and faculties who's got significant experience in these types of works in his previous roles.
Okay, that's my questions, thank you.
Councillor Lawson?
Could I have answers with them at some point? Yeah.
If you can
Thank
come back
you,
with, Councillor Lawson, just one minute. If you can come back with answers at the end, that would be fine.
Yeah. Let me just, very simply if I can, and it's not a simple subject, I appreciate, but you're asking for this amount of money so that the derelict school that you're handing back to Staffordshire County Council can be renovated for the urgent need for extra pupils. Is that not correct?
No.
No, that isn't the case. That building will be handed back to Staffordshire County Council. The investment we're talking about is on this single site.
On the other half. Okay, fair enough. And the other one, does the amount include extra staff for the extra pupils coming in? So where's the money coming from for that?
That is being added to the school budget. So we have looked at how many pupils we have, how many lessons we are teaching, and then how many staff members we need. So we've already added that into our budget, which will be covered by the school and by the trust.
So how many staff will you need for the academy?
Because we've got additional pupils, we've added in a two FTE teaching staff additional.
Just two.
For the additional 30 that we're having in year.
Okay. Do we know what we're going to do with this property when it comes to us?
Not to my knowledge, but I can bring Mr Turner back on that one in a while. Principal?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor, it's just to come off the back of that, we are fully staffed for September. The request for the funds that we are talking about today is not around staffing. We've covered that through our school funds. This is about improving facilities and environments for our children of Rugeley. So that's outlined in the 3 areas that we've identified: additional classrooms, additional social space for the children, and the development of the derelict area that we have, which is the swimming pool. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Chairman. I was interested. It's always very commendable when you look at a school being highly popular and wanting to attract a greater and greater number of pupils. I was interested about whether that was growth coming within the Rugeley area, or whether in fact you were, I hesitate to say poaching, but are you actually reducing the ability to deliver by other schools in the area because you are a very popular school?
Thank you. It's a really good question, and having worked in the schools for such a long time, it's, you know, that there has been turbulence over the years, and we've taken 2 schools and we've merged 2 schools together. And when you do that, there is always turbulence. What I will say is, as a school, we are a school that is on a journey, and I would hope that journey towards outstanding. I am very passionate and very actually competitive about that, and it's about making sure that I am able to provide the best education for the children. We do, and we have spent a lot of time about building relationships and communication with our community. We are seeing more children who were in our catchment area who decided to go out to maybe Lichfield schools or Staffordshire schools. We've had over 30 in-year transfers this year with children choosing to come back to the Heart School. And I think a lot of that is because we have stability. I have stability with my staff. I have stability with growth of numbers year upon year over a 5-year trend of more children choosing to come to the Heart School. And I think that mainly is because we are very much invested in our community, and that has taken time, but certainly over the past 3 years we've seen a significant increase of numbers coming through. And we've seen that in outcomes. We've seen that in our performance of 3-year improvements in trends, and our sixth form very, very successful. And we see the flow through in the year groups also growing. So it's just not the year 7s coming in, but our sixth forms, where potentially post-16 they would leave, we're seeing increased numbers in that area.
I can see really to have a good sixth form demands the number of pupils to be able to provide the staffing for you to be able to deliver that sixth form service. I was only just wanting to look a little further into whether you are causing harm to other schools because of your excellence. It's a bit like robbing Peter to pay Paul, and whereas it might be desirable from your school's point of view, is it in fact harming any of the other adjoining schools in other areas around? Or are we looking at the growth of Rugeley funding the pupils into your school, which, you know, we have a tremendous amount of development going on at the moment. And particularly you talked about a greater pupil number than you could actually accommodate. Are those pupils that you've not been able to accommodate coming from outlying areas? I mean, I certainly have a situation in one of my primary schools where the school would close down if it was to just be satisfying the local community. But because it's a popular school, it attracts people from all over. And I just wondered how that compared with your situation.
Of course.
Thank you. In respect of demographics, which Councillor Willington mentioned as well, the vast majority of youngsters attending the Heart School come from the school's catchment area. It's not a school that imports children from a wider area to any serious degree. In fact, it's the opposite. Whereas in the past, about 20 years, 90% of youngsters, the families chose the schools in the town. At the moment, that figure dropped as low as 60%. It's now 70% plus. So we're not only have we got growth in the numbers of children and families, growth in the housing, but growth in popularity as a result of the improvements in the estate and, you know, the curriculum offer. You add in those, you know, hundreds and hundreds of students from the power station, and it's vital. We've got 2 strong secondary schools in the town. The new schools serve about 900 youngsters. The Heart will provide education for around 1,300-ish youngsters. It's still the biggest secondary provider, will stay the biggest secondary provider in the town. And we're looking forward to providing a good offer for local children, instead of what currently happens is that they're catching buses to Lichfield and filling up Lichfield schools, having a real impact, you know, in terms of oversubscription. To a degree, the same in Stafford. It's not a sustainable way to develop education. We want to provide local provision for local families.
Thank you. I have no questions myself because I'm a councillor from Cannock Chase, so I know the school and how it works. But could you nominate one of the people, please, to answer Councillor Winton's questions he asked previously?
Chair, just very quickly, on the answer we've just got from Andrew, the question I asked was in terms of demographics, and I didn't take in the ONG development on the power station. Is there going to be enough children, enough capacity, even with these changes? And that's why I said about the school that's redundant at the moment. Is this going to solve the problem, or is it just a sticking plaster? And again, it's one for the 2 officers.
No. The ambitions for the town are to meet the current level demand and another 10-15% on top. So we've actually got enough capacity within the system to breathe and allow us to attract and retain more and more of our families in the town. So that's definitely not the case. In fact, it's important that we do increase that level of parental choice for the benefit of both schools. We really do need to get that figure up, and I think that's why we're trying to get a good, strong offer from both sides, both in different positions, but we want to attract and retain those parents and keep their confidence.
Thank you. If one of you'd like to come back now and answer Councillor Whittington's main questions that were asked previously, you haven't had your answers yet, have you?
Sorry, Chair, it was just really the one about the redundant site, what's going to happen to that and where the money's going from that.
Okay, Mr Turner.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So from a property point of view, our view is that the expansion of the school that's required for the pupils is funded through the additional classrooms, and therefore the site is redundant for education purposes. So we'll come back to us early in August. And then we will look at that site, which will probably involve demolition because the buildings probably aren't fit for any future purpose, and then go through our normal capital receipts disposal process. So that will likely involve thinking about potential planning uses. The site is probably reasonably well restricted from things like playing fields and that kind of thing, so it's a bit too early in that process for us to put a value on it. But essentially, in any case, normally with redundant school assets, it is a requirement from the Department of Education that we explain to them how that money is going to be spent on education facilities anyway. So whilst there is no definite commitment to that at this point in time, it is likely that that expenditure will be required for other investments in terms of school places. We have quite a long programme of school expansions. It's historically, members will probably be aware that it's never been 100% funded, either through basic need allocation or section 106s. So essentially it will more than likely go into that pot, but not in a position to say how much money that would be at this point in time. And the other thing is the time scale. So realistically, we're talking 2 to 3 years before any money lands in any case. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, then we have the options in item 33, options 1 to 4. Would anybody like to make any proposals? Councillor Willington.
Can I propose we accept the recommendation?
Accept the recommendation, but then look at the various options, is what you're saying.
We accept the recommendation and approve option 3.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for option 3? Or does anybody want to make any other suggestions?
Chairman, just before we go into option 3, we're accepting the recommendation. Is there any comments that anyone wants to make about us going with option 3? Or is that your, I know it's your preferred option, but any concerns about what we're actually doing?
There's not concerns, but it's just to draw to your attention that the way the scheme is structured, you can only spend the income that is generated annually. So the request would mean that we've got to make a separate application to the Charity Commission for the capital in the scheme to be released. The Charity Commission have 3 months to decide whether to support that. As the scheme is currently drafted, it is for the benefit of all schools within Rugeley. Now, Andrew touched earlier, we think there might have been an error in the scheme, but we would have to make a separate application to the Charity Commission to probably get the scheme amended so that it's only for the benefit of secondary schools like it has previously been. The scheme would then, if the amendment is agreed, be to support not just the HARP but also the John Taylor Free School, which is coming in. So the consideration needs to be given as to whether that is good use of 2.5 when it is for the benefit of not just one school.
So what you're saying is we can accept item 3, but then it's going to be referred to the Charity Commission. So whatever happens today, we've got to wait the 3 months for the Charity Commission to come back to us.
Yeah, the Charity Commission could come back and ask for further information. They could ask for further steps to be taken. They could refuse the request. So any resolution that's passed today isn't binding. It only becomes binding once the Charity Commission have given their seal of approval.
Okay. We're still happy to move with item 3? Okay, second. Okay. David, you'll be... Okay, happy? Okay. We're going with office recommendation to accept the recommendation. We're going to go with option 3 and then hand it over to the legal department to do their work with the Charity Commission. Okay? Thank you very much. We have been sitting an hour, so if anybody does want 5 minutes, we'll have a 5-minute break just to stretch legs. Welcome back, everybody. We'll move along the agenda. Item 5, land forming part of a Richard Clark First Schoolhouse. That's in Schoolhouse Lane, Abbots Bromley in Rugeley.
If I could summarise, the item relates to land used by Richard Clark First School, which is due to convert to Academy on the 1st of September this year. In accordance with the Academies Act and associated guidance, all buildings currently used by the school must be passed by Staffordshire County Council as the education authority to the new academy on a 125-year lease. The land used by the school is edged red and coloured blue and pink on Plan 1. The area of land coloured blue and possibly the area of land coloured pink are owned by the trustees of the school. The school charity, which is registered with the Charity Commission, is recorded as holding no land. Staffordshire County Council believes that in 2013 it transferred all single school beneficiary charities such as this to the relevant school. A trust deed has been found which further confuses the issue, so the point is that the property may not have transferred to the school and may still belong to Staffordshire County Council. All documents have been presented to the Charity Commission and the legal department are waiting to hear from them with their views as to ownership. In the meantime, the committee is asked to agree to the legal department preparing a tenancy at will on the assumption that the council does own the land. This is necessary if the school is to convert to an academy in September. There are 3 other associated decisions needed from the committee as per page 40 of their documents. Vanessa Rigby, to my side, is here from the legal department and she can answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions for Vanessa?
Sorry, I appreciate I'm not actually a member of the committee, but part of this is the uncertainty between it being trust land and county council land. The county council doesn't like letting tenancy at wills to schools because when you want to enter into a lease, it puts them into a better bargaining position. So I haven't really sort of come across this one before myself. So, I mean, we are trying to get agreements for lease as opposed to entering into tenancy at will if a lease can't come past. So I did wonder about the opportunity for a tripartite agreement for lease so that it doesn't really matter who owns it, whoever subsequently owns it, the school will have to enter into a lease and we won't have that messing about. What I would say is that isn't the same as normally happens. Normally we're talking about if we build a new school and we've invested a lot of money and the county council actually then wants to discharge the maintenance responsibility to the academy. But that's the only other thought that I had. Thank you.
Vanessa, any comments on that, please?
I think it's completely possible to look at doing some form of agreement for lease. At the moment, it's proposed that a tenancy at will is granted, as Ian's touched on. That would be between the county council, the charity, granting the tenancy to the academy so that they can convert on the 1st of September. And we can include provisions in that to annex the agreed form of lease and bind them to enter into the lease as and when the land ownership issue has been resolved. No, it put you in a strong, well, if, in the event that because the problem is we don't know for definite whether the land is within the county council's ownership or whether it's in the charity's ownership. We're waiting for the Charity Commission to clarify that point. Either way, in the event that it is in the charity's ownership, it'll ensure that the academy take a lease of the land and the ongoing repairing liabilities once the land issues are resolved.
Is that a matter then we should be dealing with before we know the answer to that, or should we wait until we know the answer to that?
The problem we have is that the school needs to convert to an academy on the 1st of September. Correspondence with the Charity Commission isn't always the quickest, and if we wait to get a reply, we could be in a position that the academy can't convert. So this is a solution to enable the academy to convert, but ensure that the land ownership issues are also resolved.
Councillor Lawson.
Seems a bit of a hodgepodge, doesn't it? head we win, tails we lose. You know, tails we don't win sort of thing. I agree with what Ian said. You know, I think we ought to go ahead with this in the interests of September, getting the date so that they can apply for academy status if that's what they want. But on the other hand, I don't think anybody can come back to us for anything apart from the fact that it's in the hands of the commissioners. I think we should just go ahead and say, yeah, you know, okay, and assume that the lease did come back to us.
Councillor Whittington?
This really is horses and stables and all sorts of things sort of spring to mind with this one. I'm in favour of putting forward a lease or a tenancy, as long as if this land does belong to the Charities Trust, we should try and protect that land going forward, so that if anything happens in the future, that it comes back to the trust. That's the one thing that I would really emphasise on this one. But I must say this is it's asking us to make a decision based on dust, really, because we don't know who owns the land in the first place. So do we sort of put a lease that says we're going to lease this land to you if it's ours? Just out of interest.
The agreement, the draft tenancy, will have a background to it to explain the circumstances, and it will say in the event that it is deemed to be within the ownership of the county council will grant the lease in the attached form. In the event that it's owned by the charity will grant the lease in the attached form, and if it is within the charity's ownership, a restriction will be placed on, it will be registered within the charity's name, and a restriction will be placed on the title to show that it is within the charity's ownership, so that there can't be any further dealings without the charity's consultation. The 125-year lease, standard academy lease, would then be granted, and if the property ever ceased to be used by the academy, it would come back.
David, do you want to ask any questions?
Chairman, could I just simply ask, from Mr. Turner's point of view, does that broadly conform with what you're looking at? Then I will move the recommendation.
Do we have a seconder? The view of the committee is then that we accept the recommendation on the advice we've been given and the recommendations put forward. Thank you.
Have we got any more bags of fog to sort of...
With so many competing interests, it's always going to be this way, though, really, isn't it? With charities, charity commission, ownership of land, academies, it's always going to be a difficult one, so thank you for getting us there. Okay, item 6, Tamworth Youth Centre, Charitable Trust.
So that's me, Chairman. Thank you. So if you, I don't know if you know the area in Tamworth, but it is highlighted in the plan at Annex A. So it's by the former magistrates' court, by the police station, which is now unused, and a couple of properties that the county council owns as well. So the former youth centre building and the tennis courts at the side of it are in the responsibility of this particular trust. That area of Tamworth is identified for regeneration. So the car park on the site of the former markets at Gungate, and the magistrates' court are all included. Oh, and the adjacent bingo hall that's owned by Tamworth Borough Council is all part of a town centre regeneration plan of the Borough Council. Now, when it comes to the actual Tamworth Youth Centre building itself, the County Council entered into a 99-year lease, I think it was in 1974, with the Trust for use of that building, and it was used as a youth centre. Members will be aware that, something like 8 years ago now, I think, that the youth service was ceased to be operated by the County Council and put into sort of community. So a lot of the assets were put forward for the community to use and to continue to provide those services, and largely that's been successful. What we find in Tamworth is, though, that actually the building isn't really being used for youth services any longer. And in the report there is a list of the current uses there. So we've got Tamworth Radio, a table tennis club, a bowls club. There was a use by an organisation called Liberty, who aren't currently operating out of there, but of course under coronavirus a lot of the things aren't operating anyway. But having said that, kind of our understanding is they wouldn't be operating out of that property anyway, and they do provide services for disabled young people. The main use of the building is from an organisation called Humankind, and they provide alcohol and drug services. So it's part of that commission from the County Council. Kind of background on that is because the County Council, in its corporate sense, lease it off the charity, Humankind is the County Council's tenants, but that isn't working out how we intended it. So we intended them to have an all repairing lease and look after the building in effect, and then the community uses they would look after, but they won't do that anymore. So in effect we have largely an empty building, not fulfilling any county council needs under the lease, but therefore also not providing any of the objectives of the charity. So that's as the building is at the moment, set in the context of a regeneration of the whole area. So the proposal that we're putting to the committee is to sell that asset, to liquidate it, and to then invest the capital that's raised and use that as an investment for the objectives of the charity. So there is the proposal there for a joint sale of the other county council assets, releasing the capital and then investment, and then a plan there to give members some confidence that there is a system in place to invest the income off the capital and to actually put that money to use in relation to services for young people. And the proposal in the report there is to do that through skivvies. I assume most members are aware that Staffordshire Council for Youth Services, or something, voluntary youth services, forgive me, sorry I haven't got that exactly correct. So there is a proposal there for a small amount of money. They would invest it in consultation with all the sort of youth groups in the town. So the positives there are it helps the regeneration of the town. We believe it puts the assets to better use in terms of the impact that it can have on young people. But of course, as the report clearly lays out and was mentioned in the item about the Rugeley endowment, the decision for members is that in the best interest of the assets and the objectives of the charity. So the proposal's quite clear from us in terms of releasing it and putting that money to use by spending it through skivvies. Thank you.
Councillor Willington.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions for me, really. You propose in the papers it says that a possible capital receipt of £185,000 for it. First, and then further back in the report, it says that at the moment there's £1,500 being generated. And a further £7,000 will be generated from after the sale. where are you going to get £7,000 off £185,000 is the first question, given the present interest rates. And the second one is it really good value for money to spend of that between £1,500 and £7,000, £1,000 of it on skivvies? It seems an inappropriate amount of money as a trustee.
If I can take the first bit about the investment, the training we did this morning and the fact it's invested in that CCLA investment fund, and that's got predominant investment in equities, which have returned over 8% per annum for the last 10 years. That's where the income will come from. So based on what's currently invested, obviously they get the 1,500, and we've just really applied what we get on the current investment and grossed it up to predict that we'll get that extra money because it's not invested in cash.
So sorry, Chair. So that's £185,000 goes into the fund, the CC whatever fund, yeah, and that'll gross somewhere in the region of £8,000 or £9,000. £6,500. Why would we get 1,500 if we sold the place?
The charity has already got some capital. It's already got some permanent endowment, so that already generates £1,500 a year.
Right. So what's the total figure we'll be putting into the fund then?
CCLA. I don't know, it's in the report. I can't even see. Well, the 185 will go in. They've currently got 72,000 invested, and then we'll put the additional monies in from there as well.
So it's
about 250,000.
Just about 260,000 pounds, and that'll be sort of go into there. And will that be ring fenced for the Tamworth area?
You'll buy units in the CCLA fund, and that will generate the income, and then we keep that income accounted for separately against the Tamworth Youth Centre charity, and it will only be applied in accordance with the trust deed and the objects of the trust deed. So yes, that's what skivvies are going to do, is look at the groups in the Tamworth area who will make application to them, and they will then sort of put forward the proposals for the best use of that money.
So just as a trustee, two things come out of that. One is, do you think £1,000 is the going rate? It seems a lot of money. That's still my question. And the second one is, will we get a report off cities where it's spent in the future?
Yeah. So yeah, that's the proposal, that the way that the money is spent would be reported to the committee, and you can ask for what their proposals would be. So there will be a plan in terms of how we're doing that. Personally, I think generally skivvies has got quite a good reputation for the work that it does with the youth sector in the county. So we have confidence with that. And the committee will have the ability to influence that, probably annually, but at whatever periods it so chooses. Onto the money, I mean, I was thinking sort of £800 out of 8,000, it's about 10% in terms of going round and consulting with those organisations and managing that money and that bid process. That seemed probably quite reasonable to me. I couldn't imagine that we'd probably get anybody who would want to do that activity for a lot less, were my thoughts. Thank you.
I think as well, sorry Chair, prior to 2015, the fund was managed by employees of Staffordshire County Council that formed a committee that dealt with this. So that was sort of done by that group of people, which are obviously no longer there. So since 2015, the fund's just accrued and nobody's getting the benefit from it, basically. So we felt that it was pretty good value in what, they're offering that as a management administrative fee. They would report back on it on whatever basis that, we want an annual return, just to say where all the funding would be going.
Thank you. So skivvies suggest they would probably spend up to 40 hours over the year in terms of administering the scheme. What they've set out in terms of their actual activities around that is initial development, set-up costs of the grant scheme, promotion to local organisations, and it would be considerable and widespread, ring-fenced only to Tamworth. They'd be responding to numerous queries and potential applicants and scoring of the applicants, assessing all of the grants, deciding on the grants allocation, payments of the grants, and they would also produce a report back to this committee that would outline where that money's gone, the outcomes and what difference it's made. If you look at £1,000, 40 hours, it equates to £25 an hour. There are other organisations that would do that with the expertise that we have with skivvies, and they have a proven track record of delivering. They are our chosen and contracted provider in terms of delivering infrastructure support to voluntary community sectors. We've worked with them a number of years and they've always delivered. I would have absolute confidence that they could deliver this, and personally I'd be comfortable at that cost.
Chairman, could I just come back to the land sale? Are we looking at all of the partners coming together, consolidating the site and making a single sale, or who is actually taking on the land to consolidate the Lower Gungate development? And what would be the situation which could potentially happen that once the site's been consolidated, it's then sold on and somebody makes a lot of money at the expense of the county? Do we have any, is that a likely situation, and do we have any protection against that? Jim?
So what we would propose to do is treat it as a normal county council asset sale. So that will go through the property subcommittee process in all likelihood, or cabinet if it was more than £2 million, but we don't think it will be that much. What we would propose to do is the county council run the sale. Before that, we would have an independent valuation of the various aspects, so that would determine what the share of the final sale price of a joint site was. Because of the interest from Tamworth Borough Council, and they had actually asked us whether we would be interested in selling the property, our interest, to them. So that's why we're currently proposing a red book valuation to see all scenarios. So what is the site worth as a whole? What is it like in its constituent parts? What is the trust and the county council's bits worth? So we get all scenarios in that, and then that would be the basis for, if you were minded to agree to this, for a joint sale managed by the county council through the normal county council's procedures, and then the assets that came from the capital that came from that would be split in accordance with that predetermined independent valuation.
Chairman, it's not a possibility that the police would be able to rip off the county.
Just to clarify that, the police building has been sold separately in any case. So it is just ourselves as the council, the trust land, and Tamworth Borough Council. And sorry, I realise I didn't answer your question about protection from onward selling. Generally speaking, what we find is the market sorts that out for us. So in this scenario, we would expect the highest price coming from something that is a conditional sale based on planning. So somebody's going to go through the whole of the planning process and generally have a development, rather than necessarily just a speculative purchase to sell it on. So we normally find that the market finds the highest price as long as we are prepared to wait for that and have a conditional sale. Thank you.
Councillor Lawton.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just about the interest. My information was that the signs are very, very good regarding interest rates, and if they have done 8% for the last 10 years, I really can't see any problem with them continuing along that that route. So my vote would go to yes, let's invest it in this, in where we invest our money. The other point, David, I think you're a bit wrong in accusing the police maybe of anything, but especially with Ben Adams in charge. So I think we can...
Chairman, I apologise to Ben Adams.
Well, we didn't own the police building. That went over to the police commissioner, didn't it? So it's outside our gift anymore. Councillor Willington?
Just very quickly, I think the Bronx, as I always refer to it, was sold by the previous police commissioner. So
I apologise to Matthew Ellis.
Yes, in terms of just the bigger picture in Tamworth, and it's got to be said, this land accumulation has been going on for 10 years, to my knowledge. It is important that we help it, and if the Charities Trust can benefit from it, all to the good. So I would like to propose that we take the recommendation with the codicil, that we get a report probably annually from Skivvies as to where this money's going to.
Okay, I'll take that then as a proposal from Councillor Winton, a second from Councillor Lawton. All in agreement?
Right.
Okay. The committee accept the recommendation with the codicil just put on by Councillor Willington that we have an annual report from Skivvies. Thank you very much for your assistance. Okay, item 7 then, Rugeley Education Endowment. Done? Oh, so we've done it, haven't we? Course. Okay, then we go to item 8, exclusion of the public. Okay, let's go back to the start then. I haven't got a paper copy. Okay, item 8, exclusion of public and press. That the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A, as amended, of a Local Government Act 1972, indicated below. Okay, are we now off?